and welcome to our summer online poetry series at the Frost Place. This is the third in our series of faculty readings associated with the Frost Place Conference on Poetry and Teaching. I'm Dawn Potter, the director of the conference, and I'm delighted tonight to introduce our faculty member, Angela Narciso Torres, who will be reading. Angela is the author of 3 poetry collections, Blood Orange, which won the Willow Books Literature Award for Poetry, To the Bone, released this year, and What Happens is Neither, forthcoming next year. Recent work appears in Poetry, Missouri Review, and the Cortland Review. A graduate of the Warren Wilson MFA program for writers and the Harvard Graduate School of Education, Angela has received fellowships from Breadloaf Writers Conference, the Illinois Arts Council, and the Ragdale Foundation. She serves as a senior and reviews editor for Rhino Poetry. Born in Brooklyn and raised in Manila, she resides in South Florida. Welcome, Angela.
Thank you. Thank you, Dawn. And thank you all for joining us tonight. Thank you, Frost Place Conference in Poetry and Teaching, especially Dawn, Karen, Waddell, and Jake, who have created this beautiful community that I'm so lucky to feel part of these last few days. Thanks for giving me a chance to do what I love best, which is to share and talk about poetry. Your warmth and your attentiveness and your engagement has really been a gift, especially during these times of isolation. So for this reading, I'd like to start with my most recent work first, and then I thought I'd work my way back to my first book. I'll also be focusing on poems about family. So because if there's anything that I learned during this pandemic and during the past year, really, I've learned that family is everything to me and that home is where family is. That quote from Robert Frost keeps coming back, from the poem Death of the Hired Hand. Home is the place where when you have to go there, they have to take you in. I've been thinking about that lately. And my first poem is actually a poem about returning home. It's a dream about returning home. It was first published in the Green Mountains Review, and here's a copy of the issue it appears in. And it was written shortly after my parents passed away last year, 11 days apart from each other. And then shortly after that, the house that they lived in our childhood home in Manila, where I lived for 20 years of my life, was sold, and everything in it practically, which to me almost felt like losing another parent or ancestor, really. Because as you all know, home is such a huge part of your identity. I say these things so factually, but I'm sure you know that it's been anything but easy this past year. But writing these poems has been a balm and such a healing mechanism for me. And I'm happy to share some of these poems with you in hopes that it will also help you deal with the losses that you've experienced in the past year. The poem is a semi-cento, which means I borrowed some lines from another source, and that source is a book called Home, A Short History of an Idea by Witold Rydzyński. And the poem alternates between original lines and his lines. So when I'm quoting from the book, I'll raise my hand to indicate quotation marks. In the dream, I return home. I enter my father's room. He leans over his worn table of notes and pillboxes. Personal possessions, a chair, a desk, a place to write. Nothing much has changed in over 400 years. In the mirror, I watch my mother pinning her dark curls above an assortment of brushes, powders, and creams. Fanny Price had a room where she could go after anything unpleasant below. I wear my mother's rings. I bake the meatloaf she mixed with bare fingers. Minced onions sting my eyes. To speak of domesticity is to describe a set of felt emotions, not a single attribute. The smell of lightning and rotting wood. In one corner, an overstuffed chair I read in as a child. The appearance of intimacy in the home was the result of another change taking place in the family, the presence of children. The living room empty, except for the piano with a broken string. Minimal decor has been facetiously described as conspicuous austerity. Opening doors, I search for my father's watch. Behind one door, his back is turned. This room I do not recognize. People turn to the past because they are looking for something they cannot find in the present. From a hole in the ceiling, purple wires root where a chandelier once hung. So my mother had struggled with Alzheimer's for 8 years before she finally succumbed to that horrible disease. And like the grief that comes in waves, the writing about all these losses has also been coming in waves for me. Mostly it's been low tide, frankly. I've been writing very much the past year. But this poem surfaced 4 months after my mom's death on the occasion of her September birthday. I mean, who knows what triggers these poems? They just come about and we almost have no control over them, the way grief also surfaces in the least expected moments. Grapefruit. Cutting through the equator of a grapefruit, my blade sinks into pink pulp. A day like any other. Warm gusts when I let the dog out. 13th of September, mother's birthday. Gone 4 moons. I slip into her caftan of orchids and zebra stripes. Brew manzanilla tea. I walk in a cloud of her Spanish cologne. Notes of bitter orange recall the day she birthed my brother. We are born, we die. In between, the slicing and sharing of fruit, scent of someone's hair, the sowing of seeds, the climbing of many steps, a newborn mewling in your bare arms. So the next poem is called Last. And I wrote this shortly after my father passed away. As I said, he died shortly after my mom passed away, 11 days later, in fact. None of us expected him to follow so soon after. I mean, with my mom, with a disease, Alzheimer's, it has a progression. So we kind of were prepared. But with my dad, it was really quite sudden. So this is the one poem I've been able to write about my father's death. He played the violin and I used to accompany him on the piano, especially after my mom couldn't do it anymore because the dementia had taken hold of her physical faculties as well. And one of the few things that I want to share with you tonight is when my siblings and I were discussing what to do with all the stuff in their house, because they had lived there for, I don't know, over 50 years, I had one request, and that was that I wanted to take my father's violin back with me. And I have it here. Great thing about these online readings is you can bring your props to the screen. And this is so precious to me. I don't play the violin, only the piano, but just having it is like a talisman of sorts. It's like he's always with me. Excuse me. I'll drink some water. Last. 4 days after the funeral, I carry my father's violin in its long brown box, sturdy, rectangular, built to last. In airport security, its round shoulders glide through plastic, swallowed by dark. It emerges beneath harsh light. It's September when I raise the lid, brush dust from the mute veneer he touched last spring, anointing a stuck peg, sliding rosin on the bow. I remember the A string wouldn't tune. He played anyway. His body leaned and swayed in its wheelchair cage. I remember how the bow strained. So now I'd like to move on to another poem, another subject. I don't know if anyone has been sleeping well since the pandemic. I know I haven't for the past year, really. But I've been hearing a lot from friends and family who are grappling with sleep issues, vivid dreams, night waking, oversleeping. That's me. And undersleeping. That's me too. So much worry and anxiety for family and friends who are far away. Even if they live down the street or across the country, doesn't matter because we really can't hug each other these days. We have two grown sons living in California, and the eldest, his name is Matthew. He appears in this next poem. We live in South Florida, so we're literally across the country from them. His cat makes an appearance too. Insomnia poem. Awake beneath an onyx sky, you crack the blinds, inhale night's fading ink. The air is your mother's breath on your skin. The only steeple is the church of palms in the neighbor's yard, dropping vermilion fruit on the grass. On another coast, everyone you know is sleeping, except for a boy you love. In his body ticks a clock that matches yours. Darkness seeps from the blades of palmetto, the way water leaves your fingers after a bath. To see the darkness, one must look darkly. Hours later, the boy will feed his cat, perform his daily ministrations like a mother. What is parenting but a prayer for one's young? Outside, the white ibis of dawn unfurls the potted mint, its ribbons of scent. Sun, your shadow lives in my eyes. So that's the last of the fairly recent poems, and I'd like to move now to some poems in the chapbook that was released earlier this year. This is To the Bone, and it was published by Sundress Publications. It's an e-chapbook, so you can actually read it for free and download it from sundresspublications.com. And I have physical copies too, if you're interested. I'll be reading two poems from the chapbook, which I really wrote unknowingly around my mother's Alzheimer's and her struggle, the family struggle with it. I just so happened the last 8 years, that was really pretty much all I could write about. And then the time came to kind of cull these together, and I thought, well, there's a chapbook and it kind of holds together. My mom was the life of the party. She loved music. She told great stories. She loved to cook and entertain and loved to eat good food. She was also a medical professional, and her specialty was blood diseases. So literally, she was a giver of life, because blood, what else is a symbol of life but blood? So the book and this next poem really was a way of recording and bearing witness to her life, as well as preserving all the memories before they faded into oblivion. There's a French phrase in this poem. It's the name of her favorite perfume. It's L'air du Temps. And it's a really pretty bottle. I just happened to find this. It smells so good. I wish you could all smell it. I found it on her dresser and took it with me. And I guess the literal translation is the air of the time, the air of time. And I love that literal translation. I know there's probably a more colloquial translation, like spirit of the times or something, but I like to think of it as the air of that time. Sundowning. For my mother, Carmen. The sweetest meat clings to the bone, my mother says, knifing her steak. Carmen, silver spade on my tongue. Mahjong nights, her mother and father gone, she cried herself to sleep. Blamed in the morning for her mother's losing hand. Unlucky tears. The sweetest meat, she begins at dinner, tearing off a drumstick. What will she recall by morning? Named for Our Lady of Mount Carmel, she pinned brown scapulars under our shirts, wet stamps that cleaved to our backs. Carmen, prayer on the breath. Amid potted ferns, she works a jigsaw puzzle. Bizet on the radio. Unable to sleep, she made me lie next to her. My brothers clambered the banyan trees. My legs twitched, a broken clock. Her kisses are guava and rust. She sings kundimans her mother sang. Sampaguita, dahil sa'yo, saan ka man. Sunday morning, puzzle pieces strewn on yesterday's news, Maria Callas on the phonograph, Carmen. Citrine fire. When she plays the piano, the lovebirds fall silent. Alabaster eggs tremble in glass bowls. Afternoons, she woke with an urge to bite the brown loaf of my arm. The marks on my flesh faded by sundown. The sweetest meat clings, she insists. Peels a mango. Amber rivers trace her elbows. A trail of L'air du Temps wafts in her wake. I follow it to her room, dab the scent on my wrists and throat. Evenings, she sang kundimans. Hating gabi, nasaan ka irog? Carmen, song of the mangosteen moon. Before you go, I want to give you something, she says. She hands me a thimble painted with a map of Cuba. We've never been to Cuba. In the dream, a sister pours rosary beads into her cupped hands. Upon waking, a dead wasp curled in her palm. I just need to check how I'm doing on time. Okay. The second and last poem I'll be reading from the book, To the Bone, which is also the title of my full-length collection from Four Way Books coming in the spring of 2021, is What Happens is Neither. What happens is neither the end nor the beginning, yet we're wired to look for signs. Consider the peonies. One makes a perfect bud after months of nothing. Another's leaves are ringed with black rot. How can I not think end? How can I not say beginning? Leaves fall when days shorten because a tree must reduce to its tough parts, twig, branch, bark. My mother sleeps away the daylight. She nods off while chewing a spoonful of fish and rice, her head a peony gone to seed. Father calls to say she doesn't recognize him. Turning to him, she cried out, certain a stranger was in her bed. He played his violin till she slept, a leaf in late fall curling into itself. In autumn, chlorophyll disappears, canceling green from leaves, so yellow and magenta can blaze. In my mirror, I see her, the smile that favors a cheek, eyes slanting in the shape of small fish we eat for breakfast. Trees know best the now of things. What goes on has been going on for centuries. Washing dishes, I rest a foot on my standing leg. A fork clangs on the tile. I rinse a cracked cup. I try not to think of endings. I have a few more minutes, so I'll read two poems from my first book. Blood Orange is a poetic memoir of sorts of my growing up years in the Philippines and my eventual move to the US as an adult for graduate studies. And eventually I got married and had kids here. And my mother said, you know what? Our plan was to go back, and she said, just stay there. You're better off. Your kids will have better chances at a good education. And that was a big thing for her to say. But I did try to visit her every year, and each time it was so hard for her when I had to go back. So in this poem, I'm the one who's departing, and this is how she would deal with it. It's called Lucky. Lucky. My mother looks for signs on the morning of my departure. Everything means something else, she assures me. When I topple a juice glass, calling it good fortune when crystal shatters. When I lose the coral earrings she gave me, she blesses heaven. Better that than your life. So when she hears the flights have been delayed, burnt fuse, she's exultant, convinced the gods have foiled some evil design on my safety. It delights her when I call from the gate to say I've spilled coffee on my favorite sweater. And yes, the weather in Denver is fine. Mother of contradictions, believer in science and angels, For you, I'd stoop for the wayward pin, avoid each sidewalk crack, comb a field of wild clover to find you a balm for letting go. Ellen Bryant Voigt said, always drink water before your last poem. This is my last poem. It's the shortest poem in Blood Orange, and it's about my father. I went to a reading of the late Seamus Heaney once in the Bay Area when we used to live there, and something he said stayed with me. He said, in poems, small things can bear the weight of anything. Soap. Years later, my father would tell her that while she was away visiting family overseas, the slowly shrinking soap became a sacrament of his loneliness. And how, when he bathed on the eve of my mother's return, the bar had thinned to a petal on the lip of the tub. So thank you again to the Frost Place for having me. Thank you all for listening, both here in the Zoom room and out there in the ether. Please be well, be safe. Remember to take care of each other. And thank you. Much love to all of you.